you're going to get this back. And we have demonstrated with this operation that we can do it with a degree of precision.
Leading an all-party delegation to the U.S., Shashi Tharoor calls the Pahalgam attack a calculated attempt to derail normalcy and provoke communal tensions in India. Underlines that Operation Sindur is now the new normal. Heavy rain accompanied by thunderstorm and strong winds lashed Delhi NCR after Weather Department's red alert. Flight operations impacted. Israelis protest outside the country's defense ministry headquarters in Tel Aviv call for action to secure the release of hostages held captive by Hamas and an end to the Gaza war. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey meets Syria's interim leader Ahmed al-Shara following Washington's lifting of sanctions on the country.
We're getting rid of the distractions and we're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries, killing America's enemies.
U.S. President Donald Trump delivers rally-style speech at West Point, claims credit for rebuilding the military, attacks Biden administration's woke policies. Former U.S. President Joe Biden makes first public appearance since cancer diagnosis, attends grandson's high school graduation ceremony. Former First Lady Jill Biden shares pictures. Social media platform X hit by a 2-hour outage. Owner Elon Musk says he needs to spend more time focusing on his companies. Now, members of an all-party delegation led by Congress MP Shashi Tharoor arrived in the U.S. to explain India's actions during Operation Sindur and expose Pak-sponsored terrorism. And during an interaction at the Indian consulate in New York, Tharoor called the Pahalgam attack a calculated attempt to derail normalcy and provoke communal tensions in India. Tharoor further underlined that Operation Sindur is now the new normal.
We are determined now that there's got to be a new bottom line to this. We have tried everything, international dossiers, complaints to sanctions committee, diplomacy, even this joint investigation attempt. Everything has been tried. Pakistan has remained in denial. There has been absolutely no conviction, no serious criminal prosecution, no attempt to dismantle the terror infrastructure in that country and the persistence of safe havens. So from our point of view, this is it. You do this, you're going to get this back. And we have demonstrated with this operation that we can do it with a degree of precision.
The delegation, which is presently in the United States, will also visit Guyana, Panama, Brazil, and Colombia. Now, another all-party delegation led by BJP MP Baijent Panda arrived in Bahrain and explained India's measured and calibrated response towards Pakistan's actions. The delegation, which also includes BJP's Nishikant Dubey and AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi, emphasized that Pak-sponsored terror was not only a threat to India, but world peace at large. Meanwhile, The all-party delegations to Russia and Japan concluded their visits with constructive meetings to highlight New Delhi's response to cross-border terrorism. The delegation to Moscow, led by DMK MP, described Russia as a close, tried and tested friend and made it clear that India would not come to the table for peace talks if Pakistan continues to attack India. The delegation to Japan, led by JDO MP Sanjay Kumar Jha, wrapped up its 3-day visit after engaging with Japan's political leadership and said it was deeply encouraged by Tokyo's unequivocal support in New Delhi's war against terror. Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and chief ministers of various Indian states unanimously condemned the Pahalgam terror attack during the Niti Aayog meeting in New Delhi. Speaking at the meeting, Prime Minister Modi stressed that Operation Sindur was not just a display of military might, but a reflection of India's social strength. The Prime Minister emphasized that Operation Sindur should not be treated as a one-off initiative and must be looked at from a long-term perspective. Prime Minister Modi also urged states to institutionalize civil defense measures, highlighting recent mock drills that renewed focus on civil defense. Now, according to Niti Aayog CEO BVR Subramaniam, there was widespread expression of solidarity and commitment across party lines. The chief ministers of various states and lieutenant governors praised Operation Sindur for its precise and targeted strikes. Speaking in one voice, the Prime Minister's leadership, bravery of the armed forces, and efforts towards self-reliance in the defense sector. Now, after India sent its multi-party delegations to highlight the threat of terrorism originating from Pakistan after the Pahalgam attack, Pakistan has launched its own diplomatic campaign, with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif set to visit Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, and Tajikistan from the 25th of May. Islamabad says it appreciates the support by friendly countries during the military conflict with India, and this will be Shehbaz's first foreign visit after the recent 4-day conflict with India. And this comes after India launched Operation Sindur following the killing of 26 people in Pahalgam on April 22nd. Now, Turkey has not only condemned India's military operation but also supplied drones to Pakistan that were used in the conflict. Debris of Pakistani drones thwarted by India's air defense systems on May 9th has revealed Pakistan had used the Turkey-made Sindur armed drone system. Now, Azerbaijan also expressed solidarity with the Pakistani people during this period. The Pakistani Foreign Ministry claims the objective of the visit is to have wide-ranging discussions with the leaders of these countries on the entire range of issues covering bilateral relations and matters of regional and international importance. Now, earlier this week, the Pakistani Prime Minister decided to send a high-level diplomatic delegation to Pakistan's allies. Shehbaz Sharif has named Pakistan People's Party Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari to lead the delegation. All right, shifting our focus now, just a day after the United States lifted the sanctions on Syria, U.S. Ambassador to Turkey and Special Envoy to Syria, Thomas J. Barak, met Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara in Istanbul. In a statement, the Special Envoy has assured complete support to the war-torn country and its citizens in the following years of conflict and violence. Meanwhile, residents in Damascus welcomed Washington's decision to ease the sanctions imposed on the West Asian nation in the last 2 decades. Several Syrians rejoiced the decision, saying that they are seeing real steps towards the country's recovery.
Yesterday, When I read the news that the Caesar sanctions are actually being lifted, especially after the reports we heard in recent weeks, I honestly cried. I felt like it was still hard to believe that after all these years, we're finally seeing real steps toward the country's recovery.
Now, Syria's Interior Ministry hailed the efforts of the Foreign Ministry in lifting the sanctions, saying that the efforts will have a positive impact on the country.
Today's general lifting of sanctions, thanks to God Almighty, and as a result of the efforts and patience of all Syrians, especially the work of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, will undoubtedly have a positive impact on the Interior Ministry, other ministries, and the entire Syrian domestic landscape.
Now, furthermore, the country's foreign ministry said that they are extending hand to anyone that wants to cooperate with Damascus. And that is on the condition that there is no intervention in Syria's internal affair. But on the other hand, a Syrian government delegation met families of the suspected Islamic State jihadists at a Kurdish-administered refugee camp in the northeastern region of the country. A Kurdish official said that trilateral talks were held at the Al-Hol camp. The official said that the discussion centered on establishing a mechanism to relocate Syrian families from the camp to their hometowns. While we move to our coverage of the Russia-Ukraine war now, Ukrainian officials have claimed Kyiv has come under attack from more than a dozen Russian drones as they warned of a missile threat. Explosions were heard as locals sought shelter, with the city coming under fire for the second night running. On Saturday, Ukraine's air forces said Russia launched 14 ballistic missiles and 250 attacks overnight, adding that it downed 6 missiles and 245 drones. The head of Kyiv City's military administration said that more than a dozen enemy drones were in airspace around the capital early on Sunday. In a post on social media, he said new ones are still entering the capital and warned that the night will not be easy. He also stressed on the threat of the enemy using a large number of drones and missiles from strategic aircraft. Kyiv's mayor said the city is under attack, but the air defenses are still operating. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the attacks indicated Moscow was prolonging the war and repeated his call for ramped-up sanctions. The successive overnight attacks come even as Russia and Ukraine pursue the biggest prisoner swap since the start of Moscow's full-scale invasion in February 2022. On Saturday, 307 Russian prisoners of war were exchanged for the same number of Ukrainian soldiers, according to announcements in Kyiv and Moscow. The first part of the large-scale swap involved 270 soldiers and civilians from each side on Friday. Now, while Russia has gained a critical edge in the drone war, it is outproducing Ukraine in the manufacture and use of first-person view drones, also known as FPV kamikaze drones, that are changing the shape of the 1,200-kilometer front line. These FPV kamikaze drones are striking far from the front, wiping out troops, vehicles, and logistics routes with deadly precision. The new generation of medium-range FPV drones are now hitting targets up to 20 kilometers away, a range that has jumped by 4 kilometers in just a week. The impact is massive. The FPV drones have killed and wounded more soldiers on both sides than any other weapon systems on the battlefield. But it's a fiber optic FPV drone that's rewriting the rulebook. It stays connected to the pilot through a thin fiber optic thread, making it impervious to jamming and invisible to radio-based detection. Now, these FPV drones provide a perfect video feed right up to impact, making them highly maneuverable and deadly accurate. Now, Ukraine's logistics have taken a major hit. Convoys are being struck 20 kilometers from strategic cities, and even armored vehicles cannot move without being targeted. Tanks and armored personnel carriers are now rarely used near the front, which are too vulnerable under the constant threat from the sky. The gray zone between enemy lines has widened, now stretching up to 7 kilometers in places, and soldiers walk long distances at night through trees to avoid being seen. Now, once rotated out in a week or two, Ukrainian troops now spend months at the front. They're supplied only by drones and exposed to daily strikes. Even casualty evacuation has become a nightmare, delayed, risky, and often deadly. The effects are not just physical, they are psychological. Troops are isolated, rotations are rare, and stress is constant. Now, the use of these drones is fast shrinking media access to the front. Journalists have become fewer due to the risk of being hit, and news from the 0 point are becoming harder to tell. And in other news, more than 100,000 homes in Cannes and the surrounding areas were left without power as a major power outage struck southern France, impacting the final day of the 78th Cannes Film Festival. Now, several shops, train services have also been affected due to the massive outage. The outage disrupted screenings at the film festival, including the Palme d'Or ceremony, which then quickly switched over to its own generators. Its organizers have said that the show would go on with its glitzy closing ceremony. Now, launching a probe into the large-scale blackout that struck the Alpes Maritime region of southern France, police have now indicated that a possible arson attack being the main cause of the outage. Suspected vandalism on a local substation and the sabotage of an electricity pylon along the coast are now being blamed for the outage that lasted over 5 hours.
This morning the power went out from 10 to 11 a.m. and apparently there was a fire done by a person with bad intentions at the EDF station. And after that, we don't really know what happened. We were also told that a pylon was cut down further down, but I'm not sure about that either.
On a regardé les téléphones, mais comme il n'y a pas de réseau, on n'avait pas de réseau, donc pas de téléphone, donc on est un peu en autarcie.
Festival attendees and tourists were forced to search for cash during the blackout as ATMs stopped working and restaurants could not accept card payments.
His morning, it was an entire blackout. I mean, the lights were out, the fridges, the freezers, the machines, card payment devices. So it was a bit difficult to take customers' payments. We had to use cash or checks. Fortunately, we still take checks. But any payment by card, contactless, all that, we were very impacted.
Well, payments by importers of U.S. customs duties rose to a record $16.5 billion for goods received in April. The full weight of President Donald Trump's tariffs has started to come down heavily on companies. The surge in customs and certain excise taxes is on the basic 10% global tariffs imposed by Trump. Now, in this next report, we decode if the math is right on the Republicans' pledge to pay for tax cuts from tariffs. Take a look.
Just when everyone were tuning out the trade war, Trump was at it again on Friday. The US president said trade negotiations with the EU are going nowhere, and as such, he threatened to impose 50% tariffs. What does that mean? In simple terms, let's say a firm imports European perfume, which currently costs $1,000, then the price of that rises to $1,500. While Trump unveiled reciprocal tariffs on goods from almost every country on the Liberation Day. In April, he paused them for trade deal negotiations. Still, he left the basic 10% import duties on all goods coming into the US. That tariff pushed customs collections to a record high of $16.5 billion in April. But the real question here is who pays for it? The US firm importing the product and eventually the US consumer. Trump wants Americans to use made in the US products by pushing prices of imported goods higher. While that is bad for exporting countries, costs of goods for Americans also shoot up. Trump and Republicans had pledged that tariffs will pay for record GOP tax cuts. However, the math doesn't add up. The tariff rates being collected consist mostly of a 10% baseline tariff for most of the world, a 25% duty on steel and aluminum, and 25% on autos. The tariff rate on China was about 20% when Trump took office, hit a high of 145%, and is now 51%, with monthly collections for April. Now accounted for, the Treasury will bring in at least $22.3 billion in customs duties and other excise taxes this month, which will be another record. Still, if tariffs continue at the present rate, the data suggests that Trump will fall short. The math shows that Trump will come up short of the $2 billion. A day in tariff revenue, he's counting on to help pay for the record tax cuts included in a bill passed by the House of Representatives this week. More importantly, Trump's tariff goals are also a moving target, as we have seen in recent weeks. So overall, the so-called tariff revenue is not a consistent inflow and is not likely to fund the US fiscal deficit. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
And while the French Open is stepping into a new era today, it is the first Roland Garros since the King of Clay, Rafael Nadal, retired. And this year, all the eyes are on the heir apparent and defending champion, Carlos Alcaraz. Now, Alcaraz has geared up for his title defense after a strong start to the clay season. The 22-year-old captured his first Monte Carlo crown and went on to win the Italian Open, defeating world number one Jannik Sinner. The Italian returning to action after a 3-month suspension for 2 doping violations showed little sign of rust in his comeback tournament. Fans are eagerly anticipating a repeat showdown between the two in the Paris final on June 8th.
Well, it feels great to be back here in Paris in Roland Garros. It reminds me a lot of from last year, getting or living again. You know, that feeling that I had last year is great. Having the practices here, so I'm just trying to get ready as soon as possible and to have a great level to start the tournament.
It was great after 3 months coming back, making final of. It was my first big final on clay, which is not to underrate because we worked a lot for that, but also it was a great feeling to be part of this final. We've seen a couple of things where I can improve, and the Grand Slams are just different. You know, you have to be mentally ready.
But while the spotlight shines on the newest generation, one familiar name remains a towering presence, and that is Novak Djokovic. The last man standing from the legendary Big Three, the former world number one, may not be in his first form. but no one can ever count Djokovic out. The Serb will be bidding for a record 25th Grand Slam singles title in Paris. Now, some of the other serious contenders to look out for are two-time finalist Casper Ruud, last year's runner-up Alexander Zverev, 2021 US Open champion Daniil Medvedev, and Lorenzo Musetti.
Honestly good. I feel like I'm playing my best clay court game maybe ever in my life. I'm feeling better and better, like moving better and better, like controlling the court better. So I'm looking forward to this Roland Garros.
And well, that's all in this bulletin. But don't go anywhere. News and updates will follow on the other side. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
This week on Tech It Out, we bring you some interesting gadgets from the recently concluded tech show Computex 2025. We show you how AI is transforming science labs, and we tell you about the delivery box scam, yet another scheme targeting online shoppers. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
On Wings this week, we highlight iconic tourist spots in Telangana as the state gears up to host Miss World 2025. Also on the show, how tourists flock to an elephant camp in Tamil Nadu. We also feature colorful festivals around the world, only on WION. World is One.
मैं सबसे पहले एक बात इस सदन में जिम्मेदारी के साथ बताना चाहता हूं, 21 मार्च 2026 को इस देश से नक्सलवाद समाप्त।
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION The World. I'm Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines.
You do this, you're going to get this back. And we have demonstrated with this operation that we can do it with a degree of precision.
Leading an all-party delegation to the U.S., Shashi Tharoor calls the Pahalgam attack a calculated attempt to derail normalcy and provoke communal tensions in India. Underlines that Operation Sindur is now the new normal. Streets waterlogged as Delhi and surrounding areas witness heavy rain accompanied by thunderstorm and gusty winds overnight. Israelis' protests outside the country's defense ministry headquarters in Tel Aviv call for action to secure the release of hostages held captive by Hamas and an end to the Gaza war. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey meets Syria's interim leader Ahmed al-Shara following Washington's lifting of sanctions on the country.
Getting rid of the distractions, and we're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries, killing America's enemies.
U.S. President Donald Trump delivers rally-style speech at West Point, claims credit for rebuilding the military, attacks Biden administration's woke policies. Former U.S. President Joe Biden makes first public appearance since cancer diagnosis, attends